What a pleasure it is to be joined by John Davidson, the president. John, the president of the New York Rangers. Come on.
Times have changed, huh?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
John, I was so blessed to be partners with John and Doc Emmerich many moons ago. That was an awesome time.
You know, I was reminiscing with some people in Western Canada. We were just out traveling out there and reminiscing about the world of television and how lucky I was because at 29 years of age, I had to retire because of injuries. And thank God television was around the corner. And the part that I enjoyed the most is the fact that it takes a team to put a game on television. It takes a team to put a Rangers team or any other team on the ice. And so you have your producers and directors and technicians, just like a GM, a coach, and penalty killers and power play people and all that stuff. So essentially it was staying in the game for me. It was, thank God, because it was way too young to have to retire and had the time of my life.
Who were some of your mentors that helped you along the TV route?
You know what? John Shannon was a producer. He's been in media, works for a long time. He's the one that taught me a lot about doing color work, analyzing games. And the greatest thing he taught me was how and why. How things happen and why they happen. It doesn't always have to be negative. So that was one of the great things. But all the different people worked with over the years, the Bob Coles and the Dan Kellys and the Mike Emmerichs and all those people that Sam Rose and all the play-by-play guys who allowed me to jump in and talk sometimes too much, but wonderful people. And then, of course, with the analyst work, I think watching John Madden all those years, he had a special gift for showing people the game without having to be too overly technical, just a regular guy.
Could you take some of your TV knowledge and bring it to the job you do now?
I think so. It's been a long time now, though, Pierre. But when I first left the Garden and all the TV work, wonderful times with NBC, I went to St. Louis, and I was pretty green with being a so-called suit, a management person. But the knowledge that I had of the league then, because of television, and not only doing Ranger games, but doing games all over the world, whether it be Olympics or All-Star games or just other teams' games, I knew the league pretty well at the time, and that was helpful as I learned the other aspect of the business, and then learned a ton in St. Louis. That was a tough grind because the Blues were at the bottom of the league, way down, way down. But I thought we did a good job there of getting them back to respectability, and then on to Columbus, and they were last too, but not as deep in the woodpile, and had a lot more knowledge about how to do things and work with people, and did that, and then this thing popped up, and now we're here. We're not last, but we're in the middle of a build, and it's going to take some patience.
You talk about the build. You were in Columbus a couple years ago when Jeff Gorton, the new general manager of the Rangers, decided to put a letter out with the blessing of the old president, Glenn Sather. We're going into a rebuild.
And Mr. Dolan, the owner.
And when you're on the outside looking in, did you think that was the right thing to do?
Yes, very much so, because the best thing to do, first of all, New York is a bit of a different market. It's win now, and it's just like that. People want things now, and when you go through the build, you have to be honest with everybody you're working with, and that means fans, season ticket holders, people who spend money, whether it be suites or just business-wise. They have to be in this thing, and I kept saying in St. Louis and kept saying in Columbus, you know, make sure we go north, but let's do it the right way. There's going to be times when people around you are going to lose their minds because they want more now instead of why can't we trade this guy and maybe bring in this more experienced guy. You have to do things patiently and right. And having that experience, I think I understand that. And then when Jeff and Glenn and Mr. Dolan did that with the fans here, it laid it out on the table. And I think people embraced it from what I can understand. And now they're seeing the fruits of some of that labor. Lots of those players aren't here yet. But they're learning and they're growing right before your eyes. And I kept saying in my previous stops, come and see the kids grow. And there's going to be really good things. Then there's going to be some tough times. It's just what it is. You think of your own children when they went through school or went through sports, and they were younger people in the school or on the teams or whatever. It takes time. It just does. That's what it is. And so you try to make that time as quickly as possible, but you have to be patient and do it the right way. What's amazing that a lot of fans don't know about you is you were the first guy ever to play goal right from major junior hockey and play in the NHL. Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment that people don't talk enough about. How did that formulate itself, John? I was 19 years of age, and I think Tom Barrasso may have been one that did it later. That was
not
younger.
From the Western Hockey League.
No, that's true. And I just went to camp, and I made the team in St. Louis with the Blues. Had a great first year. I blew my knee late, and that kind of stalled things. My second year, I wasn't very good. I played so well, I got traded to the Rangers in the summer, which was, in hindsight, it was special. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but it was a special run here in New York. I really enjoyed my time in St. Louis. They were great people, and I had a lot of good leadership around me, the Plager brothers and people like that. It was fantastic. But it's all worked out. A lot of times I come to the games here, Pierre, and I sit up in the eyebrow where we watch the games, and if I get there early, there's nobody in the building, and I say, I'm just a kid from Calgary. What am I doing here? New York City, New York Rangers, Original Six team. It's been quite a ride.
Speaking of rides, take us through the 1979 ride to the final against the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah. Scotty Bowman's last Stanley Cup in Montreal.
Yeah, that was an interesting ride. We started the playoffs playing Los Angeles, and it was a short series, best of 3. And I had a shoulder problem late in the season, didn't play the last couple of weeks, and started the playoffs, and didn't know what to expect. And very early in the first period, the triple crown line was on the ice, and Dion made the pass, and went right around
Simmer
me.
And Taylor, yeah.
Charlie Simmer went right around me, had an open net, and backhanded it, and it hit the post and stayed out. And I often wonder if that had gone in, would the confidence be a little bit different or whatever, but I got lucky. We won that series in 2 games, and then we went on and beat Philadelphia, the Islanders. They were a great series. And then played the Montreal Canadiens, won the first game in Montreal. Second game, they changed their goalie. Ken Dryden was supposed to start, and he had a rough time in game 1, so they were going to start Bunny Larocque. And then my good friend Doug Risebrough, his teammate, hit him with a slap shot right between the horns. Down went Bunny, in came Ken. So this is game 2. We went up 2-0, and then it all changed. And they came back and won that game. And then it ended up being a 4 straight series, but there was some good games. We lost one at home in overtime. They had a team that was just loaded with future Hall of Famers. And the astonishing part, we were very, very young, except for Carol Vadney and
Phil?
And Phil Esposito, for sure. Yeah. Phil was a great player at that time. Man, he was good. And Anders Hedberg was there. Ulf Nilsson had been injured. But the real memory that I have amongst all the memories, and the teammates were the best, but the city. We captured New York City like you wouldn't believe it, because it was nobody expected this to happen. Probably we didn't either. But it was a great, great, great ride. And I used to get up in the morning at my home up in Westchester County, go out and get the paper, and there'd be gifts on my doorstep. People, I don't know, didn't even know they knew I lived there. There was gifts there. People just really were into the fact that we were a young group that were surprising the hockey world and made a run of it. And then Montreal kind of took care of us.
But you took care of somebody in 1994. You were doing it from the broadcast side of things. The New York Rangers win the Stanley Cup. What was that ride like, John?
Well, I did a lot of games that year, Pierre, besides the Ranger games. I did, say, Dallas playing Boston or whoever it was on network television, as you know. And my feeling was the Rangers were the best team. I mean, they did win the President's Cup that year, President's Trophy, most points, but they just were the best team. And I'd come back here and do Ranger games, and we'd talk with Messier or Keenan or Neil Smith, all these guys. You guys, I'm telling you, you got a shot here. You're the best team. And they made a bunch of deals at the deadline. And once that got going, that was something. Probably the 2 series I remember the most are the New Jersey series, won 7 games, and the Devils played their tails off. That was really a special series. And then Vancouver, and that in the final should have been 4 straight. Kirk McLean stopped 50-some shots in the first game. And next thing you know, this series is getting longer and longer, and they had big, big forwards. And they were pounding the Ranger defense. Kevin Lowe and Zuboff and these guys, their shoulders.
Brian Leach.
Boom,
yep.
Well, Book could tell you the size of him, but it was, and next thing you know, it's 7 games. And it had to be, I don't know, 7 or 8 years later, I watched that game again. That was a lot closer than I thought it was. Vancouver played a great game here in Game 7. That series could have gone either way. And then to see the exhilaration with the Rangers fans who had waited so long. Here's a quick story about that. Al Troutwig, one of the broadcasters here, he told me a story that he knew a family that owned a deli on Long Island. The father was a great Rangers fan. and he had died before the playoffs. And when the Rangers won that night, the family went to the gravesite, and there was a pipe that had come out with a cap on it. They took it off, and they all talked to their father that the Rangers had won the cup. Mark Messier scored the game winner, 7th game against Vancouver, etc., and locked it up, and that was it. True story.
That's unbelievable.
But that's the passion of the Ranger fan, or hockey fans in general in any city. They're like that.
What was the passion like when you went down the Canyon of Heroes?
Well, that's another story. We were doing television here at the Garden, and weren't involved with the thing. And then all of a sudden, in came these police officers, New York's finest. And they told us to get off the set. The TV camera was running, everything. Get off the set now, they want you. So Sam and I packed up, went running out the door, went down the ramp into a police car. And the guy, the police officer had to be going 90 miles an hour going down to get down there in the lower end of Manhattan. And once we got down there, the thing that I remember the most was looking out the window and seeing nothing but faces. It was like, remember the Beatles song, Yellow Submarine?
Oh, yeah.
It was like being in a submarine with all these faces, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands. And then when I saw that, I said, oh, wow, this is pretty special. It was only in New York.
Can you use that even to this day to recruit players to be Rangers?
Yeah, I think the Rangers have done it right all the way through. Their training center that they've really worked on, they're innovative, analytics, innovative, everything from A to Z. And I think if, well, excuse me, you see Jacob Trouba come here and you see Panarin come here, and they've both been welcomed additions. They're loving it, just absolutely loving it.
Okay, now I got to ask you, the Panarin story. We're on camera.
Yeah, yeah.
How'd you pull this off?
Well, no,
A lot of people thought he was going to Florida with Bobrovsky, John.
No, I'll go back before that. I was running Columbus.
That's what I'm
part of
asking.
it.
Yep.
We wanted him to stay in Columbus. I tried as hard as I could. And so did the ownership, and so did Jarmo Kekalainen, and so did everybody else, teammates. But he had to make a decision that rightfully was his. And that's where he wanted to spend the next 8 years, raise a family, get married, the whole thing. And he wanted to be in a big city. And I think always he wanted it to be New York. And he was very forthright with our group in Columbus, all the time, straight shooter. And the 2 years that he was there, he gave everything he had. He played really, really well. He excited people in that building. He's one of the players that you definitely would say, I'm going to go see that guy play. How much is a ticket? I'm buying it. I want to go see him play.
Sure.
And then when it all happened at once, I was coming here, and they were talking to Panarin at the right time, and his agent, Paul. And I don't, when you work contracts out, that takes time, but I think this is where he really wanted to be. And he's loved it. He wanted to be in New York. People ask me, does he want to be in New York or does he want to be a Ranger? And I said, don't worry about him, the way he plays, and he's infectious, and he makes people around him better. And his teammates even in practice these days, he'll make plays and they go, oh, isn't that something? Yeah, he's got that special ability.
With New York, you're happy with the rebuild or the retooling or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
When you think about it, do you put a time limit on it?
No, but sooner the better. I mean, you can't, because there's always going to be potholes and curveballs. Every single day there's a curveball. And so you have to deal with them. What you try to do is make sure your scouting staff does a good job. You know that's kind of the DNA of the NHL now, draft and develop. And you have to have your development coaches. We've got 3 of them sprinkled around the world that are constantly in touch with these players and constantly seeing them, the players that we already have playing in the minors or junior or Europe or college or whatever. And they're doing a great job of that. We, through Jeff Gorton and Chris Drury, have done a great retooling job in Hartford.
You have a great young coach there, Chris Knobloch.
Yeah, he's done a good job with his staff. Coach. They've been terrific. Shesterkin, their goaltender there, has been out of this world in that level. KHL in Russia, out of this world. That level, the American League, out of this world. And we'll find out about the NHL as we move along.
So what's your advice to a player like Igor Shesterkin?
I stay out of the way and let him do his thing.
Even though you're a goalie and you played on this stage and you took the team to the final.
When you go back and YouTube the way I played goal, it's
John,
a little different than today.
So that's what I was going to ask you about the difference. It's the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000. Now, Scotty Bowman's got 5 decades. The late Pat Quinn had 5 decades. We've seen a lot of guys, a lot of Rick Bowness, who you know very well, 5 decades now. You've been around a long time. What's changed the most?
I think they're better athletes in goal. They have better coaching because the coaching for the goaltenders starts when they're kids. We never had coaching. We just self-taught and played. And then the third kicker would be the equipment. I mean, we practiced in fear. You know, you had the hands here to protect yourself because it wasn't good enough, and you were bruised. Another quick story: we played Philadelphia back-to-back. I think we lost both games, 3-1, 3-2, something like that. They were good games, tough games with Philly in those days. But I had like 103, 105 shots total combined in the two games. The second game was here. And after the game, I got undressed, went and had a shower, and as I walked out, the doctor saw me, and he sat me down, and I had like 16 bruises on the body, just from pucks hitting. He says, I want to see you tomorrow. I said, I'm tired, doc. I got to see you. What for? He says, I want to do a blood test. You shouldn't be bruising like that. There's a reason. I said, no, doc, that's just the way it is today. We don't have equipment and that's gotten so much better that goalies don't have to play in fear of being injured much. I mean, they take them off their masks. They take them off their shoulders. We didn't. I mean, we weren't built for that. And if you did, it hurt. It hurt a lot.
I want to ask you about a couple names, and then just give me your initial thoughts. Don Murdoch.
Oh, I love that kid. From Cranbrook, British Columbia, still living there. He could put the puck, if you took the net, the goalpost, and the crossbar, he could put it right in there. But he had some life issues, and that derailed his career. And I often think of what it could have been. And he had a sense of humor, funny, great teammate, but he had demons. Shame.
Fred Shiro.
Loved him. Different guy. He had a way of touching his players, and I don't know what it was. I just know that he was great. He's the coach that I played for that got into the Stanley Cup Finals. Another good story was he used to do the Devil's Radio. So he and his wife would leave Westchester County and make their way down to the Meadowlands to do the games, and it was quite a trip because you get lost a little bit, and Freddie the Fog.
Oh, yeah.
So he gets in there. So I'm in there one day, and we're all sitting at a table, and he's talking and telling stories, and he says, you know, that 79 runner was great. We had that goalie, that big guy. What was his name again? That big guy. I'm sitting at the table. And it's a true story, but I just loved Freddie. He was great.
Herb Brooks.
The best. You know, when he was innovative, he had ideas and he had opinions, and they were strong. He was a strong man. I had a charity golf tournament in British Columbia. I walked off the golf course. It was a hot day. Walked off the golf course. I had about, 20 messages. So he had been killed that day in the car accident. So from there, I left British Columbia, went to St. Paul, Minnesota, to the funeral. Mike Ruzioni was fantastic talking about Herbie. And then we went back, my wife and I, to New York. We hadn't been home in like, a month, 5 weeks. I go upstairs to my office, and there was a machine with all the messages. There was like 60 messages, so I started at 60. I go all the way, I got full scab writing all messages. I get to 2, it's Herbie. And Herbie is, hey, JD, it's Herb. I got a business deal. Make sure you call me when you get back. And that was almost eerie.
Oh my
But it's a true story.
Yeah.
True story. I loved Herb Brooks. Loved him.
Well, I had a great visit with him after the 2002 Olympics. I'll never forget that at the Salt Lake City Airport. I'll never forget that 4 hours of pure hockey passion just with Herbie, Bob McKenzie, and Gordon Miller and I. It was unbelievable. It was really amazing.
We had those all the time here in New York. He had courage, you know. What he did with the 80 team was pretty special. I mean, that's once in a lifetime. But even with us, some of the players he brought in, the Mark Pavliches of the world and others, and they didn't have to be 6'5" or 6'4".
The Smurfs, right?
Well, that's what we were called, the Smurfs. The Smurfs did pretty well.
Ronnie Duguay wasn't a Smurf.
No,
he lived life large on and off the ice.
Yeah, and he's a really good person. Still is a really good person. He had speed. He had flair. I really, really liked him. He was part of our young brigade. We had Dave Maloney, Don Murdoch, Dave Farish, Mike McEwen, Ron Duguay. I was a hair older than them, but this was a pretty special time with us.
Yeah.
You know, it was. Ron could play the game and just love it. Excited everybody. The Ooh La La Sassoon commercials. I was supposed to be in that commercial, but my waist was a little wider than their jeans, so I got the hook.
Oh, that's good. You look so good in blue, John. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All the best to you.
The great John Davidson.